Hey there, welcome. Super excited to get going today on our webinar about how to use internal communications to retain seasonal workers. I'll just jump right in. I am Tobi Anderson. I'm the head of customer experience with Speakap, and I have the privilege of working every day with our customers and new customers to get their app set up. And then ultimately, bottom line is how do you get value from these apps? So that means helping communicators solve people problems, business problems using technology. It's really fun. I get to work with people like Garrett here. And I have to tell you, we were having one of our catch ups, and he was telling me a story. And I got the goosebumps, as I often do when I talk with Garrett. We kind of tend to nerd out a bit about these things together. So I, thought, wouldn't it be cool if we did this in webinar style and took our conversation live and had a chance to kind of share some best practice, see what we see. It's one of the best parts of my job is sharing stories across customers. And sure enough, Garrett was up for it. So here we all are. I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you, Garrett, to do your quick intro.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm also very excited to be here. Like Tobi said, I'm Garrett Valenzuela. I'm our communications director at Q&D Construction. We're based in Reno, Nevada, and I've been here about 5 years. I spent the first 3 at the front of our hiring process in a position called dispatch, but it is basically the hub for hiring and termination, onboarding, everything in between. It's got a little bit of HR to it and a little bit of field coordination to it. So it gave me a really nice look at what exactly we're facing when it comes to seasonal workers, which of course we're going to dive into today, but it's a very unique challenge that of course is not only going on in construction. I know there's a lot of people facing that seasonal workers dilemma. So hopefully we can give some great strategies and some things that have worked for us. Of course, we are a seasonal company in that we work typically from April to October in good years. Sometimes we get to stretch it into November. Sometimes we can start in March, but it really does depend on the weather around here, and it's created a really unique challenge.
Awesome. Thanks, Garrett. All right, let's dive into the agenda real quick. We're going to go through 5 topics, and we're sort of starting broad and talking about some of the common challenges when retaining seasonal workers in particular. And then from that perspective, what best practices have we seen work and not work? And then talking about an employee app in particular and how that can be a part of the story to solve the communication problems. And opportunities, and then implementing that change. So when you put in an app, that's always a change. And what are some tips and tricks of getting through that? And then landing on results, like what's the impact been? So we talked about getting to that business value. So what has that looked like for Q&D in particular? Couple quick housekeeping notes. So we are, as I said, pretty much inviting you into our conversation here. So on that note, we'd love to hear questions as we go. There is a questions button, so please submit your questions to that section. We do have a couple of folks moderating for us so that they can plug the questions into chat. And so we'll reference those at the end of each section. And so this is, again, really meant to be a bit of a live conversation. And then at the end of the webinar, we are going to share out the recording of this. So if you missed the beginning or any portions, you'll have that available. And if we have questions we didn't get to, we will reach out and work to address those for you. So with that said, we will go ahead and dive right into our first topic. And so ultimately, what are the common challenges of retaining seasonal workers? Well, we know in the construction arena, there is an employee retention problem. I get to work with people across all sorts of industries. And as Garrett, you alluded to, this is not just unique to construction from a seasonal perspective. We have hospitality customers that have seasonal timeframes. We have, the other word, manufacturing. Could come up with it. So in manufacturing, right, you think about like the getting ready for holiday seasons or seasonality in a lot of different areas, retail and so forth. So, a couple of things that I've seen is that they're maybe not available to work in that short period of time. Like you might get people that come in and start, but then they don't stay. They're not engaged and committed because it is for a shorter period of time. Another challenge I've heard from customers is that, it's costly to put the time in to train and retain a seasonal worker, knowing that we do have this turnover. So these are some of the specific challenges that I've heard from customers. I would love to hear, Garrett, from your perspective, what does this look like at Q&D Construction from your side?
Yeah, it's that ebb and flow is something that I'm not sure that it ever stops here, in the sense that I talked about the season, what we consider summer, but the construction season, and it being typically from April to October, but depending on the weather, it can be later or earlier. And typically what that means is March and April, we're going to go from 350 total employees company-wide to 550 by the end of April. So 200 people are going to be hired in a span of 2 months. And I double, triple check that. There's months that it has been more, there's some it has been less, but typically that huge uptick comes at about 200 people coming on board. And then from there on, it's about 40 or 50 people that are added every month until we get to August. And that's where we're kind of plateauing, and then we start to trickle down a little bit. And that also comes with that transient nature of construction that you mentioned. Same with manufacturing. People are leaving, coming back in a span of April to June. They will leave and try something else and come back to us, sometimes the same year, sometimes the following year. So we're hiring 40 people and 10 people may leave. But the machine moves so quickly, a lot of times you're bringing people in and you're not replacing, you're adding to the team. And that sort of transient nature of work has led to exactly what you said. It feels like they don't belong somewhere. So why would they invest in the company like we're asking them to? We present ourselves as this family company. I mean, we've been in this specific city for almost 60 years, started by two gentlemen who made cabinets for a living, and now we build roads and bridges and everything in between. And it's garnered us this great reputation, but we're facing the obstacle when your reputation doesn't sell you the way it used to in the 90s and even the 2000s. People see our logo around town and they just say, that's the company you want to work for. Now, not only are there more companies to work for, but they can do anything. They could choose to start a totally different type of job with a company like ours that maybe they wouldn't think they have with a bigger company. And that amount of options that they are presented with now creates well, why should I stay? And we have to give them that reason to stay. And we want them to be part of the family, but to your point, they don't always see it as a family when they think they're going to be laid off in October, right? Much of that is weather-based. Some of that is performance-based, but there's no way for us to carry 600 people into December. If it snows really strongly, we're shut down for 3 weeks. So we're employing people who aren't working anyway. And it's just a very unique dynamic that, again, March comes around and here they all come, and November comes around, they all disappear, and then they come back. And building loyalty with that type of workership is very tough.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's dive in then to what do we do? We've set up the challenge. I think I already mentioned hiring and training. There's a cost to that, right? It can be quite expensive. So that's one of the challenges on its own. Then bringing people back, like you're looking, like you said, if you do hire and train somebody, you've made that investment in somebody. So getting that same person back is a savings to you. One of the things I've seen some customers do is to make that environment very positive, to work on recognition programs, kind of that, this is a place where you can grow, that this is a place where we have a fun culture. Like those are a couple of examples I've seen from different customers. But what are the ways that Q&D approaches this?
So it's exactly that. We push the culture almost as often as we push out paychecks, right? Every single week, we're cutting all those paychecks. We're trying to push culture even more frequently. And that can be in the form of events, the way we deliver information to people visiting job sites. It came down to how can we differentiate ourselves from not just our competitors, but any other company in any other industry. And the idea that used to exist in construction was you come to work, you get in your machine, you grab your shovel or your tape measure, whatever it is, you do your work for 8 to 10 hours. You don't speak to anybody because you're just the worker. And then you go home and you repeat it again the next day. And that mentality is so difficult for anyone. Doesn't matter what your job is. That is a tough place to live. So pushing not only that we're a family here, but giving them the opportunity to tackle trainings that they may want to take on or join us at different events. It could be we have tickets to some random game or a dinner where they're presenting someone an award. We try to bring as many people into that circle as possible. And it creates this dynamic that says, if you want to be a part of something, you give us your dedication, we give you in return those rewards, not awards. And that typically brings that buy-in a little bit higher, right? They are starting to say to themselves, I can't imagine working anywhere but Q&D, right? There are 5, 10, 15-year employees who are good enough to call their own shot at any construction company. And if you ask them why, they say this place treats me like family. Now, that is great for the 15-year worker, right? Someone who's been here 15 years is likely being treated like family. But in years 0 through 5, that is where you're having to capture that mentality. Those people who were in it 15 years ago were the people who sat in the machine and didn't say anything until 15 years went by. And now they're saying, I want a little more. So we have to bring that to this younger generation and this new generation of people that are tackling construction. They don't think the way that other people did. And it comes with those events where your leadership and your field team are mingling together. It's not, hey, we're throwing a party for the field or the office is having a party. It's not office versus field, right? It's everyone working together. That is crucial to what we're doing, no matter what it is, whether it's announcing that we won a job or cooking lunch for everybody who's on a specific job. It means everybody's doing everything together all the time.
Yeah, and one of the things you've shared with me previously that always is impressive is how engaged you are with your leaders and how important they place communication in this kind of picture of solving, or at least attempting to solve the retention for seasonal workers. Can you say a little bit more about that leadership commitment?
Definitely. That's an initiative that we are owned as a general partnership, and we have 3 owners all work in the office every single day, and they reinforce the open door policy, and they mean it. They mean, if you have a question, come down here and ask me. And that was not something that existed here 10 years ago. And that was the first wall they brought down. And when nobody came to ask questions, they started holding meetings. First, it was safety meetings to have all of our field leaders come in where they're getting an update on safety procedures, but they're getting an announcement from each of their owners about how they view not their performance, but how they view the company. What direction is it going? What things should we be looking for? How should we be helping the younger kids learn how to be safe on a job? And it's springboarded from there to what we call an operations meeting. And they bring in the CFO, and he dives into where we're at with our profit and loss, what jobs we have coming up, how much things are costing, whether it's a replacement tire or a pile of rock. All that stuff has a price for us. And he breaks down exactly where we're at. And that is open to anyone. Doesn't matter if you are a laborer or a carpenter, you work in accounting, you work in payroll, doesn't matter. That's open to everyone, right? And we do it very similar to this webinar where if you're not here, you're working in another town, you can attend. And they welcome that atmosphere of asking questions. Should they want people to come ask them how they're doing? What should I be working on? What should I focus on? And when you have access to your president and vice president like that, the idea of being a family starts to really be reinforced. And even if people are nervous to come ask those questions, they will approach them. They will drive out to a job site, and maybe they're just looking at something or they're meeting the foreman, but they're talking to every single worker on the job because they know when that person goes to another company, they may not be afforded that opportunity. And that's what leaves the impression. It's not, wearing the logo and looking good. It's coming out and asking, are you seeing anything on this job that we're not doing correctly? Like, what can we be doing better? When you ask that to someone who's been here 2 years and doesn't consider themselves an authority, you're empowering everyone to be part of the conversation, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, getting that employee voice and making them heard and contributing, that can be huge for sure. Awesome. All right. Well, I don't think I see any new questions that have come in. So let's go ahead and move on to the next topic here. Oh, sorry, we did get a question. Sorry. In regards to retaining seasonal workers, how do you gather feedback from frontline workers, and what action do you take based on that feedback? Ooh, this is a good one.
That is a good one. So those safety meetings I mentioned are a huge part of that. What we've launched typically in the safety realm, we have a QR code. It's on every single job site, and it links to an observations app. And that allows us to have anonymously comments about a specific job. And it's a place where you can come in and tell the entire safety department what you see on a job, whether it's good or bad. The ones that we've had that were good, we've handed out awards to those foremen because their crew went to this anonymously and recommended that they were doing something really, really well, right? It's helped us spot when we have trenches that aren't cut exactly the way they should be, right? Ladders placed in places where they shouldn't be. And it's allowed us to gather feedback on the safety side of things very, very quickly. But along with that open door policy comes the ability to come into the office and speak to someone directly. So we have regular meetings where one of our superintendents is bringing in people from the field. They can be any number. Some of them do concrete, some just do woodworking, some just do dirt, and they bring them in and ask them what they're seeing on their job site specifically, because we have very different job sites across the company. And they are able to not only give feedback, but they're able to share with their peers on the front line what they attended or what they saw in this meeting. And then by the time that has kind of trickled down, we are able to have another quarterly meeting where we're bringing everybody together to discuss some of the initiatives. So that has been a huge part of it. And of course, we're going to talk a little bit more about our internal application has also been a huge part of that, but I'll save that for a little bit later.
Way to tee up the transition there. I love it. So, an employee app, that's really what brought us together. I think it's a decision, right? So you've got all these approaches to communicate, but then there is the need to get to frontline workers, and often they don't have an email, or if they do, they haven't shared it with you, or even if they do, they're not looking for emails from their work on, quick updates or that kind of thing. So our customers have invested in an employee app. I think using an app is this kind of next step from a digital perspective. There was a time when almost all communication in a company was just in person. And then we started to get new technology coming in with phones and so forth. And then things very quickly, rapidly moved to digital and email, but it did leave a large portion of our workers out of the mix. So I think, from an employee app perspective, there are some key things that you can do that I've seen across customers from a real focus perspective. Obviously, it's increase internal communication. That's the goal everybody has, right? So, but doing things like quickly having a place for somebody to look for a policy, because they're out in the field and they have to do something new that they've never done before. Like you talked about that newer worker, or it's just something they don't do very often. They want to check the SOP. Also training, we talked about that, the safety perspective and how do you, for example, maybe you have a live training, but maybe somebody didn't attend, or even after the fact, they're looking to reference information. So having an app for that is another scenario that I've seen. But ultimately it's that, quickly enabling people with quick information that they need, or like you said, like voice of the employee. How do we hear from employees? That's been a top theme as well. So with that, how did Q&D go from these approaches to reaching folks to deciding, we need an employee app?
Right. That has been, it's a never ending pursuit because the introduction of technology has changed so many things, and the construction industry, I'm sure I'm wrong and I hope I am, but I will always argue that they are the last to adopt any new technology that doesn't specifically pertain to working in the field. So doing time cards and stuff on paper, like using spreadsheets, but making them yourself and writing in them, things like that are all across construction. And in bigger companies than ours, we're actually more technologically advanced, which I didn't think was possible. But we're learning that we're actually trying to turn that way. It's just, it's not something that's familiar to the workforce. The workforce, again, is used to the just come in and do your job and that's it. But what we've found, and I know, Toby, we've talked about this a lot, the idea that they don't want to be connected is a facade. I've had people tell me to my face that they don't need some kind of app. They do not want to social media with me. They don't want to be part of whatever cult we're building here. And then they are the first ones to text me when I've left town and say, how do I get on that app again? And most of that is because what we're sharing is what's going on, right? We're not necessarily highlighting a specific thing every single day. We're just giving you an idea of what we're doing, where we're moving as a group. And they are part of that group, whether they like it or not. And even though they're the best at running their machine, it's hard to not be involved. If you don't want to get on there and say what you're doing, that's fine. But you do want to know what's going on. And we tried stuffing flyers and checks. We tried email blasts. We've tried the intranet, which again, all require you to either know your username and password, be checking your email frequently, and be plugged in. And really what we're fighting is the idea that when you're at work, the company could be sharing information with you. Because typically construction workers don't think that's going to happen, right? We talked about text blasting, a way to get feedback as quickly as we possibly could, make sure we're not missing anything in those lower reaching areas. And all of it just, it doesn't work without the buy-in. And maybe those were stepping stones to where we've gotten now, but sure, getting the workers to buy in that what we're quote unquote selling with this app is being a part of the team. They're already a part of the team and they know that. And they value their position with us as we value it with them. So to have them buy into the idea that they're not just a number. We get told so often that when people leave here for more money, better work schedule, bigger job that's going to last longer, that's a good one, they always jet off and they go take it. Can't blame them, because when you can work for longer, that's the name of the game. But we get told when they come back the following year, 2 years, 5 years, doesn't matter. When they come back, they say, it's just different here because people know me. The people here know who I am. And at this other company, I'm just a number. I am a person who does a job on a project, and that is it. It doesn't feel like a community. And the biggest challenge that we faced was not building the community, because it was already there. It was the tool to bring everyone together, right? Yeah. Everyone is together. The field is together. The office is together, but they didn't always see the same side of things. That has been the biggest thing, is trying to break down that barrier and understand that we're all moving in the same machine, but we need each other to move forward. And that's what Speakap has kind of created for us.
Awesome. Yeah. And I That really rings with me. The employee engagement research talks about how people just want to be recognized for their contributions, but isn't it? It's just sort of a human thing. Like I just want to be seen for what I'm doing and my part in this, and we all want that. Doesn't matter what your role is. It's just a very human thing. So I love that.
Absolutely.
Well, and I think our next couple sections, we're gonna I'm dying to share some examples, but I think we'll get there, right? I think there are some really cool things that you and your team do at Q&D that could really help some other customers and other prospects, or anybody who's just trying to communicate with folks, whether it's seasonal or any frontline workers. But to get there, you had to introduce this tool. You had to go through a change, and let's face it, it's a behavior change. So implementing a tool is a process. It's not just a one and done, right? So this is a challenge for every customer I run into, and I'll commonly hear, if there's a customer of mine that is struggling. One of the top examples is what you talked about, which is the employee saying, "I don't want that on my phone." But you've shared an example of me, but somebody came to you and was like, "Hey, I didn't see that we had basketball tickets available. How come I didn't get that message?" Right. And then, and you've got some tricks for kind of addressing that in the moment, which I love to hear you share. Some other quick things that I wanted to share I've seen to manage this kind of change and to get to success is, for one thing, rolling out in phases, right? So whether that be choosing a portion of your audience, if you're a large organization, or if it's rolling out just a couple of features at first. So just being super focused and looking at ways to sort of bite off value, getting people on, and then figuring out what are those key use cases? What's the why for them? I always, I work with internal communicators all day long, and they're always like, "Well, the goal is just to reach them." Okay, well, that's great, but that's so that you can communicate with them. But what do they want to hear, right? What's the thing that's going to bring them in? So getting some of that intel, maybe it, maybe you have to go out and talk to some folks to figure out the why messaging that will get them to use it. That's another key I've seen. And then ultimately, I think it's this nature of we're working in a space where maybe you're not even allowed to use my phone in some places, depending on the business and that kind of thing. So how, fitting all that in is super key. And I would have to imagine from a construction perspective, this was a bit of a challenge. So I'd love to hear from your experience. And by the way, I want to mention something, just a little kudos for you. Q&D Construction is up for a Reagan Award for the work they did to launch their app. And so we're super excited. We're going to find out at the end of the month. I think that you guys are finalists in several categories. So more to come there. But anyway, so with that said, love to hear some of those keys to success from your rollout.
Yeah, and it was something where our leadership team, they were the first ones to be told about it from another construction company that they are a big group with, right? They all share ideas about how to run the companies better. And they got a tip from another company that an app might be the easiest way, right? And oddly enough, what piqued their interest was the translation feature, right? So being able to translate any news that we post, they can translate it into their native language, which for us is typically Spanish, to understand what's going on, right? There's no reason to send them a bunch of news if they don't understand. So that was what got us started first. But when it was brought to me for adoption and rollout, I leaned on Speakap pretty heavily. And I think Erwin would tell you that I was really cautious. I was already fielding questions from every corner of our team about, well, what if this, what if they try and use it for that? And Erwin even helped me pick up a do's and don'ts list. And I had to go into a presentation and let them know it's not replacing email communication. People will not be able to reach out and ask you why they're missing an hour on their paycheck. Things like that were the chief concern, right? And as we got closer and closer to that actual unveiling stage, the concern shifted from, well, what if they do this with it, to how are we supposed to get them to use it, right? As you mentioned earlier, we can collect emails all day, and we've made half of the emails at the company, right? So we have people with our devices and we assign them an email. We have those in a big database. But if we have only the leaders talking to the other leaders, we're just talking in a circle, and it's a giant echo chamber of no input and no value, right? They may seem like they know what's going on, but we're not reaching the people who we're trying to reach. And that really came down to boots on the ground for us. It came down to we will not get anybody to adopt this app unless we get the long-standing crews to agree to use it and use it in a way that benefits them. So after we roll it out to the office, everybody starts to get on there. We're creating a little bit of content. We went out to the job sites of where our 5 biggest crews are. And by biggest, I mean personality wise. They are the crew that when there is a problem, they're the ones called in the middle of the night. They're the ones tackling the craziest projects. And it's because they've stuck together. They've been together for 5 or 10 years in some cases. We go out to them face to face, tell them what we're doing. We're launching an app. It's going to allow you guys to not only communicate with the people back at the office, but with each other about everything that's going on. There will be no walls. Everyone will get to see what we're doing. And we got them involved, and they told the next crew that they were working with. And then we switch disciplines and we go talk to the paving crew and the concrete crew. And it really was person to person for much of the rollout. The first couple hundred people were easy to get involved because they were anxious for it. They like knowing what's going on. But it's the next 200 that don't necessarily understand why they would need this to communicate with us. And that's where the biggest struggle was. And the easiest thing for us, we can announce it, we can stuff it in their checks, but really it was the face-to-face letting them know why we're doing it. Because that was the biggest question. Why do we need something like this? Because I was having those conversations. And I said, this is a tool that we can use for the rest of time to help you guys understand what is going on everywhere else. You get plugged into a job for 2 years and you don't leave that town for that long. You don't understand that we're working in 15 other places. Isn't that something you'd like to know? And then beyond that, it was the events, like you mentioned, letting them know that we are hosting an event only for employees. Please come out and join us. Doesn't cost you anything. You don't have to bring anything. Just come out here and be with us. We may not even be doing anything. We're just hanging. And that was where it really started to generate traction, because people were attending those events who didn't have the app, which means somebody with it was able to talk to someone who didn't and say, how could you not be going? You have to come. And slowly it was like, well, how do I get plugged in? And those fears that we started with, right, I would say in terms of what we thought the benefits were versus the fear we had was probably here. And then as we rolled out, people started to realize that it wasn't something that we were forcing them to do. It's just something that if you consider yourself a major part of this company, which everyone should, but not always do they, it's something you need to have to be plugged in. And we didn't force anybody. It's one of those things where you make a little bit of exclusivity and pretty soon everyone kind of wants to be part of it. And it's still, again, it's a work in progress all the time, but that was the biggest part for us, was talking to some of the longest standing crew members face to face. It just had to be done. There was no other way.
Yeah. And you guys do something that I think is pretty cool, which is if I look at your feed and we have like a timeline where people can see information that's available to everyone, or you can, have messages relevant to specific groups, right? But ultimately they see it in a social media like feed. And on your feed, what I love is that there's such a variety of types of content. So I'm seeing, project wins. I'm seeing the other day, you guys had a thing about a rail that was hit by an avalanche and how the team went in and told that story, right, of getting in and making a difference. You have this huge snow in California and how your team was in on it, right? So you're sharing these work stories, but also, from a worker perspective, hey, new job opportunity possibly. But then right next to it, you've got a community involvement event, right? Maybe you've done some fundraising, you've done sponsoring. So it's that telling the story of how Q&D is part of the community. And then there's that what's in it for me bit too, even more about employee benefits. That's a key I see across almost every customer. If it's helping your workers to see, hey, I can participate in this event. I can participate in this contest to win something. Or simply, I can quickly find access to my, I don't know, pay information, right? Whatever it is that we connect people to. Yours is such a blend. You have a really good, variety of content in there. One other thing I would love for you to share a little more about is you've talked to me about when you're out, because you're out talking to people on the regular. How don't you like have something for in the moment if the app comes up?
Oh, right. So I should have brought one with me. We have a little card, business card size, and it's front side English, back side Spanish, and it tells them what they're going to get when they join Linked, and which is what our app is called, and how to do it. And it's literally a text message, and it sounds all professional. Like, oh, just text your number to it's my cell phone, right? So I'm giving them a card, and it says just text your email here. By the following day, you will be signed in. It is that simple. I go out to cars like, hey, we're having a pizza party. Someone's delivering food. Boom, I'm there. Here's 500 cards for everybody to take. And typically, if we only get 10 people to sign up the next day, fine. That's fine with me. It's never going to be everybody all at once because not everybody wants to be that connected. And I totally understand that. But I keep those with me everywhere, right? Sometimes I'll say, get your phone out. Let's do it right now. And being able to capitalize on that when they're asking about it has been huge. People I haven't seen in years come find me in the office because they're told I know how to get them to sign up. That's the kind of thing that shows you the traction is working. The differentiating on the timeline is crucial, but that rail incident, for instance, happened on a Saturday, right? So I would say 15 people probably knew about it that weren't the actual workers, right? I had no idea. The idea that somebody who was out on that job took those pictures and instantly found me Monday morning, I have some pictures for you, thinking that they might be posted on the site. Now, to be candid, that was one of our most introverted superintendents, great at what he does, really tough to communicate with, right? He's very tough on his guys, but his guys would go to the end of the earth for him. One of the best that we have. He comes to me and says, I've got these awesome pictures for you. And the reason he's doing that is he's proud of the person running the excavator in the snow, slinging rail to the side with two guys watching him. Those are people he's worked with forever. He's proud of what they're doing. So he's taking pictures of that job so that everyone can see it. He wants me to put it up immediately and let them know that these guys were working so well together to get this done quickly. Because again, that road was shut down. It was an emergency, right? He wasn't thinking in the moment, man, this is a great photo opportunity. The crew was absolutely on top of it. Once the crew got set, they were the best at what they do. So he was able to think to himself, everyone should see this.
Yeah.
And that's one example, but that's happening all the time. Hey, I've got a crazy picture for you. Some guy's hanging off the side of the building, right? Finishing a form for a giant tunnel or something that we're building. And they're thinking about posting it on Linked. And again, back to the rollout issue, does not happen even in the first 6 months, right? But a year and 18 months in, people are now thinking, is there someone who could share this with the whole team? This is a big deal. And again, moving rail from left to right is not a big deal. But the setting, the fact that the road was closed, it becomes a huge thing. And he's trying to give his crew credit, which previously we don't have people doing that. Because again, he's introverted. He's going to tell those guys, good job. They're going to go home and on Monday they go somewhere else. But his way of sharing credit is showing the whole company what they were able to accomplish in a matter of hours.
Yeah. And I want to clarify. Yeah, sorry. I just want to clarify. Your organization mostly has a central point for your internal comms. It goes through you and you post. I do have customers who have more open permissions, right? Where there's people that are out there on jobs posting, and I think you have other people enabled to post and that kind of thing. But it's cool to think about like what you needed at the beginning, and maybe those use cases start to change. Maybe you start enabling other people to post down the road, that kind of thing. I have some customers who really do have completely wide open network, so anybody can post. So that gets to that fear issue, which is very common from change, right? Putting in changes, like what's the worst that can happen. So that's, I love helping people through that. Well, let's play that scenario out. Like, right, somebody's like crazy upset about something, they post it on your network right next to their name.
Right.
One, hey, now you know about it. And two, they're probably doing it to their colleagues anyway. So now there's something that you can address. So we can work through those kinds of things. That's another one.
Absolutely.
You talked about, it's really changed. And I've had other customers tell me this, like the app becomes a part of your culture. It changes the culture of communication, but also reinforces culture within the organization. So thank you. I missed a question earlier. Let's just pull this in really quick from the chat. So it was, Garrett, can you give an example of a successful internal comms initiative that you specifically implemented for the seasonal workers using your app? So just another example, I guess.
Well, you kind of mentioned that we've been giving stuff away on the app as a way to get people to join. So rather than blast an email, hey, we have tickets to the basketball game, or the rodeo's coming into town and we have such and such a tickets, we normally would email that to everybody. Now we've made it a little more exclusive. And if you're on Linked, you can be part of that conversation, right? So to your example, when someone doesn't get a chance to get the tickets, it's kind of like, well, you're not really in on the conversation. Come join us on the app and you can have as many tickets as you want. So last summer, we did, for the first time, a photo competition. So we asked everybody on the app, didn't matter what you did, to submit photos from around job sites, wherever. And we kept it really loose with the parameters. And all we said was, we're going to, over the next month, take submissions. People come in and like the photos that are in the stream, and whoever gets the most likes wins. So the first few days we're getting current job sites, and then I think maybe 8 days in, someone posted a job from 2012. And then everyone was like, oh, I didn't know we could post a bunch of old stuff. So then jobs from the 90s and early 2000s starts coming in, and that it shows you how many people have worked here that long. They're taking pictures of a job
that's cool.
to put on the feed and generating this whole conversation. And I'm not kidding you, and I wouldn't tell you this if he wouldn't tell you himself. Our vice president dropped a hilarious picture of a superintendent doing something embarrassing right in the middle of it. So we've got all these people that are taking it super serious, and we had prizes. We were giving away like 100 pounds of meat and Q&A backpacks and stuff like that. We were just giving stuff away for whoever finishes in the top. So they're taking it super serious, and our vice president comes in and drops this hilarious image in the middle. So naturally, it gets hundreds of likes and would have been the winner, which of course we had to post. He's disqualified because, he owns the company, so he doesn't get to win anything. But what he did there was almost 89% of the field works for his department. So for him, if you want to dial it down. But what he did there was jump in the middle and say, don't forget, we're doing this for fun, right? This is your peers communicating with each other. So don't be afraid to show some personality. Yeah. And pictures that came in after that were, one guy was running a dozer in the middle of the snow, and someone up above him took a picture of him while he was hugging the exhaust pipe for warmth while eating his lunch. Right?
That's awesome.
It snowed that day, so she had this picture and she shares that. So it started to bring out the personalities of the people on the app, which again, we're trying to break down the idea that you are a number, right? You're a person, you have a profile. And while most of those profiles sit empty, when we opened up this couple month period, we were able to get some personalities to come in. Those people had to come in and claim prizes. So they come through the door, I congratulate them, thank them for what they do, ask them if their whole crew is on the app. And it now created a face-to-face opportunity with the people who were super involved.
Yeah.
And of course, we're going to do that again this year because it was so great. We got to get better prizes to make sure more people participate. But things like that where we're not offering up an event for them, they are the event.
Yeah.
It was really unique. And I think a Speakap person actually mentioned it to me. And I thought, of course, we got people working all over the state. We can get enough pictures to fill, a huge timeline. And it worked really, really well.
And I want to really emphasize that leadership involvement piece. I think anytime we can get leaders to participate, it gives a natural example. It's a model for what's okay to do in the app. And then I think there's that we probably have heard of the psychological safety thing. It's so true. I'm in the social media type interface, but it's work. So what's okay, what's not? That can be a big fear initially of folks using it. So as soon as they see, it doesn't have to be a top leader like in this example, but anybody who's influential. You mentioned a tenured crew. They set the tone, and when somebody else sees that, it really helps other people to follow along. So awesome example.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
That's critical.
All right, let's move on to our next one. I think time's flying by as it does when you and I chat. I think what we want to talk about is results, right? So one of the things that I really love about our app is that we help with understanding the reach. That's the key job for internal communicators, not just to put out messaging, but to understand how it's landing, where it's landing, to get that two-way street moving. And so, when you're just trying to do this with emails and texts, even, messaging out to a leader to share a message, and you got the telephone game that goes on, so hard to measure the effectiveness of your communication. So that's one of the things I think has been a big advantage of our app. And I think, one of the things you've shared is this theme of building loyalty throughout the organization. You've created trust. You share these stories. You've got again that whole gamut of types of content. So those are some things that I've seen that seem like they're of value. But I would love to hear from your perspective and what you've heard from your leaders. What are the results and the impact of linked and using the app itself?
Right. So that evolution, like we talked about with the photo contest, I don't even know that was in the cards for us when we first got started. I think the app, in my opinion, because I'm constantly posting, it's gone from this news beacon where we tell you what's going on to a place where we can all gather to either celebrate or converse with a certain topic. For instance, we have a huge event every summer, and it's just for employees and their families. They can bring any family member that they want. We line up 12 pieces of equipment, and they get to jump in and run them with the kids, right? Super safe. Been doing it. This will be the 5th year now, and it is a huge hit because every single year, all we hear is, I never thought I would get to do something like this, right? We're giving those kids a chance to see what their parents do, but it's an event you can't throw unless you own a bunch of equipment. So it's one of our specialties, right? So we're able to do that. But that conversation that we're having at that one company event that we have once a year is now happening every single week. When we win a job, you have, like, our president is #1 commenter. I'm sure any statistic on that, 100% of the time, he's the first person to comment. Because again, he understands the value of, if he's the first to chime in, everyone will chime in. So we win a job, he calls out the person who estimated it specifically. Because I always write it as Q&D won the job as the team, we are the greatest. And he comes in and says, nope, that was Kyle. He won the job for us. Great estimation skills or something like that. Someone has the birth of a new child and we're able to share a picture of the family, from the hospital after the child's birth. Everyone's chiming in. Congratulations. We can't believe it. And it's simple things like that. It's not just inviting them to come join us for something or giving away prizes. It's now them seeing that what we're using the app for is to share everything we possibly can, right? I mentioned transparency in the first topic that we talked about. That transparency, the open door policy, whatever you want to call it, only goes as far as you are willing to take it. And here, our leaders live it. And what they've empowered the rest of the team with the app is to be part of it, right? Giving your entire crew a voice is not easy because they're going to spend most of their time here thinking no one is going to listen to them if they were to bring something up. And the only thing that could come from that is a problem. If they are afraid to speak up on something small, will they speak up when there's something big? Could that something big eventually injure somebody? Right? That's what we're playing with here in this space. But empowering those people only comes from the tools you give them and the willingness of you to reciprocate. So our leaders are always chiming in because they want everyone else's opinion. And it's not a mystery that after they were the only ones to chime in, everyone else started chiming in. That safety net that you mentioned, if the vice president is willing to jump on here and say something about whatever we posted, whether it's about an event, charitable donation, a job victory, whatever it is, if they're jumping on to say good things, I can jump on and say good things. And it could be the thumbs up emoji. It could be well done, 2 words. I see some stuff with no punctuation, doesn't matter, right? It's a social friendly space. And all we're saying is come be part of it. We want to share everything we can. When you can't attend the meeting where we display everything, we're sharing the information here. We're hiding nothing. And that opens this flow of communication where when there's an issue, they won't be afraid to come to us, right? Will they always go straight to the president? Probably not. But they will come to some leader or some supervisor and tell them what they're seeing. And we see it in the office all the time. The issue is the field is so much bigger. 550 people working in the field to 100 in the office is a vast difference. And if we can't employ those people to come talk to us about things, we're going to lose them. And I mean, you saw the numbers at the beginning. We can't afford to lose them. Every worker we have is valuable, no matter how skilled, right? Training is something, like you said, it's expensive, but it's worth it. And part of what the app does is tell them that they are worth it. Stay with us. We will bring you into the family, right? Yeah. It always comes back to that community environment.
Yeah. And, I think I always say the analogy, this is not a sprint, this is a marathon. So, you talked about when you first launched the app, you wouldn't have expected to do some of the things you've done. So you've evolved and you've learned. You and I are continuing to work together on what's next, right? Like biting off what's the next benefit we can look to realize or next, opportunity we can support. I think that's a common theme. I wanted to share, I have a customer in manufacturing, and they recently went out and selected key folks from different parts of the facility who they elected to be part of a communications team. And they have enabled them with some posting rights, right? Again, so started their process with pretty limited, kind of more push comms, people could react. And now they've enabled some other folks within the workforce to share. And the very next day, there was this awesome post from a guy who they told me was kind of a detractor at first. Somebody who was pretty reluctant to even use the app, right? And he was telling a story about, with a picture, so he took the picture, put it in there, and about how they used, I'm not going to get into the fine details, but they used the clock to track this performance, and it was getting everybody on the same page. So hearing from people on the floor, sharing a best practice, right? It's so cool to me how we're always looking for ways and to bite off the next opportunity. So feeling that value, that's really great. From a last questions perspective, so we've kind of addressed this. The question was, how are you able to measure the success of your strategy using the app? Anything else you want to say on that front?
I think that one thing I did leave out was, even when I work with you closely to get statistics, right? I love them because it does, in a way, validate what we've been doing with the app and how it can continue to move forward. I don't think our leadership team is afraid of investing in it because they snapped their fingers and we have to get this. And they were serious about it. So the statistics to me, our usage rate, our sign-in rate, the scroll rate is out of control for, 40, 50, 60-year-olds that are scrolling for over a minute. We've done a pretty good job. That's great. And in reality, the measurement of success to our leadership, when they talk to me about it, it's not, the statistics don't impress them. They understand what's going on the app. And one of the first things they say is, what's our next step? Right? They are excited by the numbers, but they want to know, how can we take that photo competition to the next level? What is the next level of getting more and more people involved? And we've got people suggesting events we could hold. We have people suggesting different events we could go and participate in. And I think what we're going to launch this year is a trivia contest. So I think what they want to do is kind of run through the company's history over a month. I said, hey, we could do it over a week. We ask one question a day and we give away a prize to whoever gets it if it's closest. They said, we got to do it for the whole month. So it's that interaction is how they measure success. They're not measuring it on how great the scroll rate is, no matter how many nerd statistics I give them. They're just like, I don't know what that means. We want to see more people on it. And that was their goal, because my thought is, let's do it in a week so we can get prizes for everyone. They said, get enough prizes to last a month, and let's do questions together. So they're coming up with, how much did this project cost, or how much does this weigh? Crazy things about past projects that we did that relate to our founding days. And we're going to take that from the 60s to now with one trivia question a day and give stuff away, right? Like it's one of those things where measuring success doesn't always come from the numbers. They're great. They make me feel incredible. But what they're looking for is the next bar to jump to. And how does it involve the field, the team that's not in the office? That's key, because statistics are an office thing, right? And that's something I didn't understand at first, but I look at them and get excited. They want more people from the field to be involved. So they are the ones saying, I don't care. Let's give this away. Let's do a trivia contest or something like that. Yeah. And they're measuring success on a totally different page, but it's, again, all about inclusion and involvement.
Yeah, and it's the data is cool, right? Of course, I love the data. I start to geek out on that kind of thing. But
me too. But I bring it up. No one cares.
The feeling, though, is what I'm hearing, right? It's like it's the feeling that people get, and
it's the experience. That is what they want, the experience to be enhanced. They love that people are adopting it, but is the experience being taken to the next level? And that's kind of where they challenged me with it, but they are also there to help me with it. If I say, hey, I want to do X, Y, and Z, but it doesn't work when it comes from me, the president will record a video of himself. Hey, I'm the president. We're starting this huge event. We want everyone to be part of it, right? We did that last year to honor our company veterans. And I told him, I said, I want to announce it, but it doesn't mean much coming from me. These people want to talk to you. He records the video next day, right?
Love it. And it's not that hard, right? Yeah, it didn't have to be some big expensive production of a video. I know that's a theme I'm seeing for sure across customers, is a little bit more of just like quick, like, maybe it's the TikTok age, right? So just quick video, post it out there. Really,
and it just tells the message with authority, right? Like, if from a person of high standing in the company says, come to the sandbox, this is where we're building stuff.
Yeah. We're just about out of time, but I just wanted to thank you, Garrett. If there's any last questions that get popped into our question section, please go for it. Otherwise, I will just close us out. Look, I want to be transparent. Garrett and I really, hopefully you got that we love talking about this stuff. So we're available. We're on LinkedIn. If you want to connect with us, share questions, best practice. That's part of, what we would love to do is help build this community. So thank you, Garrett, for being a big part of it, sharing your stories. Always love it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I love it too. So I appreciate it very much.
Thanks everybody who joined. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks.